let's talk about the offense. All right, so this offense, and again, just like the defense, I'm going to be going through every player. This is not the coaches review yet. We'll be talking about the coaches in a separate video, so that's going to be that. But let's talk about the players on the offense, which, tell of two halves of the season, right? There was one half of the season that was well, and there was the second half of the season that was bad, regardless of who the quarterback was, right? Even in Jacoby Brissett's last few starts, those weren't impressive point totals that this team was putting up. So let's look at this offense and see who underperformed, who performed at expectation. Again, we'll only be looking at those with 100 or more snaps. So names like Dalen Baldwin, Jerome Ford, Miller Forrestall, Jesse James, Drew Ford, Dearness Johnson, Chris Hubbard, Jalen Darden, Demetric Felton, Michael Dunn will all not be graded on mines. They are graded on PFF scale, but they are not graded on mines. Under 100 snaps, I don't really think you made too much of a contribution to the team for me to grade either way. So with that out the way, let's talk about these grades, and we're going to start with Anthony Schwartz. Where is Anthony Schwartz? Now, Pro Football Focus gave him a 50.8. Pro Football Focus grade, obviously from Pro Football Focus. I said Pro Football Focus too many times. All right, but what is my grade for Anthony Schwartz? Incomplete. I got to give him an incomplete because, yes, he did play over 100 snaps, but, I think he got, 5 targets in those snaps. He didn't look great. You know what I mean? If I have to give it a grade, it's probably a D. My expectations weren't that high for him, and he didn't really reach that. Michael Woods came in with a 53.5. For a 7th-round pick that we really thought could or could not make the roster, I give him a C. James Hudson, 57.5. Really didn't play this much this year because nobody really got injured at the tackle positions. Not the greatest tackle in the world. Abysmal pass block grade when he was out there. 43.7 for those of you who want to get rid of Jedrick Wills and replace him with James Hudson. Please consider the 43.7 pass blocking grade that he has compared to Jed Wills is 70. And the run blocking grade, which was pretty decent. And honestly, most of his snaps came in run blocking situations where he was the extra tight end in 13, but an extra eligible lineman that can go out for routes. And he was fine in those roles, but again, they weren't asking him to do hard stuff there, right? When he was in as an extra lineman, it was hey, be an oversized fullback to block a DB. You know what I mean? So it's not like he was coming in being the extra lineman and being asked to block TJ Watt or something like that. So, the run block grade's good, but you have to kind of take it in context of what he did. My expectations for him were kind of, I would say I would have hoped that he could have played a more significant role. So I'll give him a C- for this year. Farrell Brown, 59.1, had no expectations of him. He exceeded those expectations, gave him a C+. Deshaun Watson comes in at a 55.3 Pro Football Focus grade. And this is one I'm going to leave for later. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks last, you know what I mean? But that is an interesting thing to note as I'm sorting this out through snap count. Kareem Hunt came in with a 69.1 Pro Football Focus grade. I would say this is tough because with Kareem Hunt, you expect better than that. But given what he looked like he was capable of physically this year, it seemed like he gave you that. I would say C-. He wasn't that same Kareem Hunt. The burst wasn't there. Either he changed running styles or he just can't sustain his old running style anymore. But something changed with him, and that really affected him. I talked about this before when it came to Dearness Johnson and why Dearness Johnson can't really be the backup long-term to Nick Chubb, and that's because both him and Nick Chubb run that kind of style where it's not direct downhill, right? Where they're hesitating and they're waiting for things to cut up and they're relying on their vision. And that's good when you're the number one back, right? Nick Chubb can get away with that when he's the number one back because, yes, he's going to have 5 carries where he gets behind the line of scrimmage. But if you give him 15 carries or 18 carries a game, he will break off one or two of those into big plays. So you take that. Right? You can't have your cake and eat it too. So you have to take the good with the bad with that style. And when Nick Chubb does it, that's fine because Nick Chubb's going to get enough carries to make it worthwhile. When Dearness Johnson is doing it, or when Kareem Hunt, which this year Kareem Hunt was doing that, it doesn't, because when you get 10 carries, you kind of just need to pick one and go, right? Pick a direction and shoot out of it, because you just got to make sure that all of your touches when you are that second running back are positive touches. You can't really mess around and lose 2 yards here when you're getting 10 carries a game. You know what I mean? So I think he changed his style up to be more patient. And I remember Stump Mitchell talking about wanting Kareem Hunt to change his style up to be more patient. So maybe that's what it is instead of age, because I think a lot of people have assumed it was age with Kareem Hunt. I'm not 100% sure that's the case. I think if he goes somewhere else, runs like the old Kareem Hunt, he'll look like the old Kareem Hunt. But I think what we saw this year was more of a style change, and it works if he's the number one back. It doesn't work if he's the guy getting 10 carries, and that's who he was. So that's why he gets a C-. David Bell came in with a lot of expectations, got a 52.5 Pro Football Focus grade, Yeah, man, David Bell had a very weird season, just didn't play well. Y'all be worried about his ability to separate at the NFL level. Like, I don't know if he was open and guys weren't finding him, or if he just wasn't the guy there. We'll see. Also, it didn't help that Donovan Peoples-Jones had such a good year, and he kind of plays and has a similar profile to Donovan Peoples-Jones, albeit Donovan's a little bit better of an athlete there, which kind of helps him separate. So, yeah, with David, I would say the expectations were decently high for a third-round rookie. He did not meet them, but I'm not going to penalize him too harshly on that, so I'll give him a D. Harrison Bryant, on the other hand, 59.3, really wanted him to blossom, become that second tight end. He was more of a liability. I would give him, he's close to an F, so D-, but it wasn't a good season for him. He blocked well in pass blocking situations, so there's that. Only 29 snaps, though. Run blocking wasn't great. He looked too small to be out there. I don't know if he has the body and the frame that can pick up weight like he needs to in the NFL. He's been a wiry, stocky kind of guy where he's not like skinny, but it looks like he's lean. That's what he is. He looks real lean. And sometimes guys who are like lean, he has the build of a hard gainer is what I'm saying. If for any of you guys who lift weights, a hard gainer is somebody who has a hard time cultivating mass, and he just needs to get bigger. And I don't think he can get bigger. I think, 4 years or 3 years in the NFL strength and conditioning program, he ain't gotten significantly bigger yet. He just might be who he is. Yodi Freeholt, 61.4 Pro Football Focus grade, had to play center for Ethan Posick. No expectations. Didn't even know this dude existed before the season started, so he gets a C or a C+. Look, I know he wasn't a good center or anything like that, but I think it got proven that the Browns' run game problems were much bigger than him when Ethan Posick came back. So there's that. Nick Chubb comes in with a 90.3 Pro Football Focus grade. A. Yeah, you get a 90 in Pro Football Focus, you get an A on my scale. Nick Chubb, pretty good, 1,500 yards. Career year, at the beginning of the year, looked better than I've ever seen him. At the end of the year, kind of fizzled out, but then finished strong for the last couple of games. So Nick Chubb gets an A. David Njoku is next on this list, comes in with a 73.7 Pro Football Focus grade. High expectations for him coming in. If it weren't for the injuries, I think statistically he hit some of those ceilings, but he didn't. But still, I would say I'm very happy with what the Browns got out of David Njoku this year. I would give that a B. Played really well. Same thing with Ethan Posick. Not high expectations coming in, but I would give him a B as well. Wasn't even expected to start. Was one of the best starters in football. Ranked third, according to Pro Football Focus, amongst all centers. So pretty good there. Jack Conklin is somebody we need to have a real conversation about because he's underperformed the last couple of years, and this year was no exception. And he just got an extension. I don't know. Maybe that was a cap thing. Maybe they were doing that for the salary cap. I have no idea. But he got an extension, 66.7 Pro Football Focus grade. It's been trending down in that direction for quite a while. This is somebody who used to be a top 32 tackle, and when that's at right tackle, that's great. But now he's in that 47th bottom half of the league rank in tackles, so not good. Injury, he gets injured a lot. Every year he's been on this team, the man's been injured. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't know. I don't know with Jack Conklin. They re-signed him. They swear that he is the most important guy to the run game. He had a 51.8 Pro Football Focus grade in run blocking. He was actually decent in pass blocking, 78.8. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think Jack Conklin's a little bit overhyped. And I think some people in the fan base overhype him as well. And speaking of overhype, I mean, Wyatt Teller had a horrible year considering where the expectations were. Now, look, he's still a really good guard, 17th in the NFL. But when you're talking about somebody who put up 2 back-to-back seasons at 1 and 2, 17 is a huge drop-off. 70 Pro Football Focus grade. The big disappointment for him, look, he was never a great pass blocker, but he dropped in that area, but he also dropped in run blocking. Now, he was also injured, but you know how I am with injuries. If you're out there, you're going to be graded on what you do out there. We can talk about next year, but I can't expect you to take a massive jump just because of injury that you played with all year got healed. And it's just ridiculous, right? If it was an injury that was so bad that was going to make your play dip this level, then you need to have sat out games. But if you were able to play through that injury for most of the year, then you're going to be judged based on what you did that year. It ain't just Baker Mayfield that got that treatment. Everybody gets that treatment in the NFL. And the same thing goes for Wyatt Teller. And that's why I'm going to give him a honestly, I feel like giving him a D, but he wasn't terrible. So he gets a C minus. Just disappointed expectations. You go from being a top 5 guard the last couple of years to 17th. I know 17 ain't bad, but for what the Browns are paying him, that's not good. That's not good. He has to have a better year next year. Amari Cooper, 81.2. High expectations for him to coming in. Was a 15th ranked wide receiver in all of football out of 123. Give this a B plus to an A. He was excellent. I think he had one of his best years of his career. If he doesn't get that sports hernia or whatever injury, the sports core injury, in the middle of the season, I think he explodes past all of his career highs. Next year, I expect him to put up big numbers, and I expect improvements from other players as well, especially at the quarterback position. But yeah, 81.2. Donovan Peoples-Jones came in with a 64.9. I don't really agree with that Pro Football Focus grade. I thought he was much better than that. 78 out of 123 wide receivers. I'm going to give him a B. I thought he played better than the Pro Football Focus grade has him, and I thought he was really good. I mean, big chunk plays, critical third down plays. That's the one thing Pro Football Focus grades don't really focus on is when the catches happen. And when Donovan Peoples-Jones's catches happen are very important, right? Again, it's why you can't take one measurement as gospel, right? With Wyatt Teller, I was hard on him over his Pro Football Focus grade, of course, but also I was watching the tape all year. Like, how many tape reviews have y'all watched throughout this whole season where I've been pointing out, hey, man, Wyatt Teller missed this. Wyatt Teller ain't getting there on time. Wyatt Teller, he looks slow out the gate. Wyatt Teller didn't get to his pull in time. Wyatt Teller missed this block. That caused this 3-tech to move up into this gap, which caused this linebacker to be free here, which caused this guard to not be able to get to the second level. How many times? I've done that like millions of times with him, right? With Donovan Peoples-Jones is the exact opposite, where every time I watch a film, I'm like, oh, he did a really good job here. He cooked this route. He was actually open on this side. So, yeah, I think the Pro Football Focus grade is robbing him, and it happens with wide receivers often where they don't really grade them properly, but I would say Donovan Peoples-Jones is pretty good there. Second in all snaps, third in all snaps for the team, second in all snaps, the second most reliable guy on the team when it comes to being out there. Jedrick Wills, 62.9 Pro Football Focus grade, a 69.6, almost 70 pass block grade, a 55.3 run block grade. This has been what Jedrick Wills has been about the last 3 years, right? Not a great tackle, not a bad one, but not necessarily one you can replace with anybody, right? Like, he has been a starting level tackle who's decent in pass blocking, really bad. Well, not really bad, but not great in run blocking at all. That's where he struggles. And that's kind of what Jed's been on tape. It's what he's been on Pro Football Focus. It's what he's been the last 3 years. I think it's gotten more attention this year. I don't know. Were people hyping up like a big Jedrick Wills leap or something like that in the offseason? Maybe that is why there's so much backlash on him right now. I know he responds to people when they talk about him. I think like Jedrick Wills has been an okay tackle. Like, and he's too, like, I use mediocre not as like, most people use mediocre to say horrible. I use mediocre to say average, right? And that's what Jedrick Wills is. He's a mediocre tackle. He's a pretty average tackle. And he's too average for people to be this mad about on a consistent basis. Like, he's not good enough to be one of the most hated players on the team, because usually the most hated player on the team is somebody who can be good enough to make a difference, but just doesn't. Jed is just Jed, right? Like, I know people like tell themselves that Jed could be so much better if he has better body language or whatever. He's just kind of been this. Like, this is what we drafted out of Alabama, a guy who was a better pass blocker than run blocker, had some strength upsides, but he was the low upside guy, but the guy would be ready to be a starting left tackle in the NFL. This is what Jed was as the 10th pick in the draft. This is what Jed was promised to be as the 10th pick in the draft, and this is what Jed has panned out to be. He is exactly who we thought he was. Not the best tackle in the draft, but like the most pro-ready tackle in the draft, with limited upside. And right now, his limited upside is hurting him, right? He doesn't have the greatest technique inside, right? When he gets beat inside a lot in his pass sets. But he's pretty good outside, has decent feet outside, and decent hands on the outside pass rush, right? When it comes to run blocking, he's not the longest and the strongest guy on the block. So he just doesn't do well in run blocking, and his awareness is not great, right? Like, he has low awareness. So he's not going to be the greatest tackle in the world. He's all right. He's worth like seeing out for the rest of his rookie deal. When it comes to 5th-year contract extension, I don't know what happens there with Jedrick Wills. I think that's up in the air, but he's probably going to start next year, y'all. So I know the pitchforks are out for him. He's not a great tackle. Nobody's making the argument that Jedrick Wills is great, but like, he's too average of a player for me to have to hear about and get messages about every week he plays a football game. It just doesn't make sense. Joe Bitonio, 87.6 Pro Football Focus grade. Yeah, he gets an A for being Joe Bitonio. Let's talk about the quarterbacks, though. Jacoby Brissett, pretty good, 82.6 Pro Football Focus grade, 786 snaps, so 11 games, not an insignificant chunk there. And then Deshaun Watson comes in with a 55.3, 386 in 6 starts. So a little bit there. Now with quarterback Pro Football Focus grades, a lot of this is up to subjection, right? A lot of this is up to whoever's grading's opinion of the player. One of the things you can look at is like Baker Mayfield's Pro Football Focus grades from the first 2 years of his career, where Pro Football Focus was really pushing him as one of the stars in the NFL, and then how he could have the same kind of games in like 2022, and then they would grade them significantly lower, closer to reality, because like they just did not have the reason to want to see it good. So with Pro Football Focus grades, sometimes they can be biased. But Deshaun didn't really play well in his last 6 games, right? Or at least up to the statistical standard that most people set. So while I think that Pro Football Focus grade at 55 is kind of low, because like he had a 3 touchdown game in there, they graded it like 50, which is ridiculous to me. But it wasn't like it was super. Like, it wasn't like he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league when he came back. He was up and down. I thought he played his best games, unfortunately, in the worst conditions, right? And against the Saints and against Baltimore. I thought he played his best 2 games of the season there. His worst 2 games of the season were definitely his return game, and then I would say his last game. But the issue I feel like with Deshaun, and I'll grade Deshaun first, has been, is this offense, and this is a concern I had coming into it, while this offense can make guys who are mediocre to good level quarterbacks like Jacoby Brissett and Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins, while it can make those guys look good, the big question with this style of offense is, what can it really do for elite level guys? because that's a different thing, right? With some of these more average level quarterbacks, you're basically saying, hey, this is the look. We're going to go 1 or 2, get the ball out quick. We're going to have a reliance on rhythm in order to beat a defense more than like relying on your brain power to beat a defense, right? So what I mean by that is they can't outthink you to a spot if you just throw it there first. It's basically the kind of basic ideal that this offense is. And it's not just here where you saw this. You saw this in Green Bay with Matt LaFleur when he brought that style of offense to Green Bay. And it took a while for that to really click with Aaron Rodgers. And if you look at it, it's not the same type of offense, right? The same thing happened with Matt Stafford. Like when you bring in a plus level quarterback, right? Somebody who is not an average quarterback, right? There are issues with this offense. Sometimes I think that's the problem with the offense is when you give Jacoby Brissett a route concept, Jacoby's going to go 1-2 go, right? Because that's what Jacoby does. That's what Jacoby's been told to do his whole career, and that's what Jacoby does best. He does not go best when he goes 1-2, back to 1, 1, 2, 3, oh, back to 2, let me check 1. That's not what Jacoby does. He doesn't process things that fast. And that offense works for him, or at least this implementation of the offense works for Jacoby Brissett and other guys. And that's why you can see guys come in like Brock Purdy come in this kind of offense and play well. But then you see like bigger name guys get into these offenses and they struggle, right? Like Kyle Shanahan has done a lot with mediocre to good quarterbacks, right? Matt Ryan probably being the best quarterback he's had. But when it comes to improvisers, when it comes to guys who have more to offer to the table than just, I can throw it real quick and get it out quick, Kyle Shanahan struggles with those guys, right? He doesn't really know what to do with those guys. Like Johnny Manziel's a horrible example, but like he hated coaching Johnny Manziel because of the off schedule stuff, right? You look at Trey Lance and why he doesn't like putting him in, or didn't really like the offense didn't excel while Trey Lance was in. It's some of that, right? Like this offense needs to have some adjustability. And I think that's what they're going to find this offseason, to people who can make plays off schedule. That's where like air raids, not air raids, but like air Coryell systems are really good with, because guys are spread out, right? If like with the Chiefs are probably the best team at this. And the Chiefs don't really run a specific spread air raid type offense. They just kind of run a regular NFL offense. But what they do run a lot is 4 vert. And when you run 4 vert a lot, that leaves a lot of room for, improvisation, right? The same thing, like that's what's gonna help this out, right? They're gonna have to spread out this offense, and I think that's gonna happen. You can already see that start to happen. A lot of the timing stuff with Deshaun doesn't work, because what Deshaun will do sometimes is start at his 1, come off of his 1, get to his 2, and then try to get back to his 1, right? Because Deshaun is looking for ways to poke through the defense and to use his brain to win the play. But we already established the way that this offense is set up out the box. It can be changed. It has been changed. It is not that difficult of a change, but out the box. But it does take an offseason though. But out the box, this offense is like, hey man, we're going to get this ball in this coverage before this defender can react. We're not going to rely on you to see it. We're just going to rely on this being the look, and let's get this thing out before that. And that's just not how Deshaun Watson plays football, right? Deshaun has never been quick release, 1 read, top of his drop guy. He's going to hold the ball a little bit. He's going to improvise. He's going to make plays, and that's what makes him a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And the Browns, I think, overestimated how comfortable how transferable that offense would be, because you can get good performances out of a guy like Jacoby Brissett. They overestimated what that would do for Deshaun Watson in one direction, without considering that, hey, Deshaun's not going to want to get to the top of his drop and just give the ball up immediately. He's going to want to see if there's a bigger shot to take downfield. And if that's the case, this offense, then all of a sudden, this offense is being worn inside out. So you have to change how it works. And I think that's what they figured out is like, okay, the way that Deshaun sees it is not the way that this offense is going to see it. So you have to change it. When you have a quarterback the caliber of Deshaun, the offense becomes his. So they're going to have to adjust to that. That being said, his struggles explained now thoroughly. I think that was like 8 minutes on his struggles alone. And he's the most important player on this offense. So it's important that we talk about it. That being said, he does get a D. Like, this was not a C performance. This was not what I was expecting. This was under expectation. He took more sacks, and I thought he was going to take a lot. I thought he was going to take like 18. He took more than 18 sacks. So that's not good. He threw more interceptions. That's not good. Turned the ball over more than I expected him to, and threw less touchdowns. That's a disappointment. He gets a D for this season. That being said, I'm not out on him, obviously, and I don't think anybody should be out on him because of a rough, I think, couple of games in the 6-game stretch that really brought everything down. Now, Jacoby Brissett, he gets an A because I expected, a lot more than what most people expected out of Jacoby Brissett, and he exceeded those expectations. And I would really want Jacoby Brissett to go somewhere like San Francisco because I think he's the kind of guy that can excel in a Shanahan system, right? Where Shanahan's like, hey, I want you to do 1, 2, and if you can get the hell out of there, get the hell out of there. That's what Jacoby Brissett can do. He was the 6th ranked quarterback. Like, I know people are going to make LOL, Jacoby Brissett higher ranked than Deshaun Watson. He was the 6th ranked quarterback in all of the NFL. He was better than a lot of quarterbacks this year. Like, point blank, period. He was the 6th ranked in Pro Football Focus. I think he was like still top 10 last time I checked in QBR. So Jacoby Brissett, if he goes somewhere like San Francisco, I think he can have success there. I don't think you win a Super Bowl with Jacoby, but you're gonna have a lot of fun with him. And I think sometimes that like if you can't get that guy, and San Francisco doesn't look like they're going to be able to get that guy. I would legitimately say for San Francisco's sake, it would be better to take a Jacoby Brissett over a Derek Carr, right? Because a Derek Carr, you might run into some of the issues that Deshaun's running into in this offense. So, yeah, that's what my thoughts are on the offense. Overall, C+. They were starting at an A pace at the beginning of the season, but that second half really tore them down, something big. Still, if you look at it in total, the offense did perform better than you expected, but not that much better than we expected. So C+, that's the grade for the offense. Thank y'all for watching. Have a great day.